Bear with me here. I'm gonna close the stream and I'll reopen it. Okay, can you now see the pink thing? Yes? Okay, cool. Right. So let's walk through this. This is full candle structure, right? So we're just gonna focus on this candle. Okay? So we know thin action up top. Not a lot of participators here. Right? But what does this candle look like as it's forming? Well, it opens here, right? This is a green candle. We can see the candle. Here's your wick. Here's your wick. Right? No, we don't need to record this. So what does this look like as it's forming? Right? It opens here, and then it pushes down. So you have a red-bodied candle, red-bodied candle, red-bodied candle, right? So what's happening? Market sells are pushing into this orders, right? These are all the market sells right here, getting absorbed, right? Then at the low, this is 201 to 59. So this, what does that show us? What do we call that? When there's this imbalance at a low. Two words we can describe these sellers. And then the pushback. What do we call this? Support, sure, but trap sellers, good. What is it actually, though? Well, it's trap sellers and it's exhaustion, right? These sellers are exhausted. They can't keep pushing. How do we know they're exhausted? Well, look how many orders were transacted here versus one tick above. Is it growing? No, it's decreasing, right? Good, Adam. Volume dries up. So once again, visualize how this candle is forming in real time. We have the open, and then it pushes down. So we have a full body, right? This is how this candle looks like at the beginning. And then look what happens. Aggressive buyers bring it back up. What does that candle then look like once we start executing these orders? Looks like this, right? Because we're not back up to the open. But what is this showing you? This 1172. What does that mean? Yeah, right? Like there's a seller who was trying to step in here and hold it down, but was unsuccessful, right? And in reality, this is not happening in single lots, right? Like the candle's doing this, right? We know this to be true, right? I'm just trying to keep this very simple to understand the premise of how a candle forms. 'Cause this is every single candle, right? And we know, okay, so what do we know so far to be true? We know we opened. We know we pushed down, right? So this is our candle. Then we know that buyers pushed back. Now we have a doji. Then we know that all of these sellers, these guys, right, now get squeezed. So now our candle looks like this, but it's green. Pretend this is green, right? This is how candles form. Now, what happens at the top here? Is there much absorption occurring at the tops? Or is this buyers not finding value here? Yeah, right there and perfect. Yeah, no one's really interested in transacting here, right? We know sellers are interested. Let me clean up the screen. Right. So we know that buyer fair value, right? They are interested in executing here, right? How can we look and find out where seller fair value is? Oh, we are squeezing, by the way, right now. Let's go ahead. Let's watch this real time. Now that we understand this. This is up into our 84 target, right? We were looking for 84. We have arrived. Okay, so let's watch the orders real time. Now that we understand, like, and we can see what happens here, right? What happened right before this? Buyers tried to push. Limits sitting here. Absorbing. Buyers still interested in transacting above them. Much larger, right, than these other tops, right? So what happens? Exhaustion. Liquidity move. See how thin this is compared to these areas? Buyers step in, start pushing back, push back, push back, push back, push back, push back. But sellers are getting overwhelmed until we get back to our top.
Early market on close imbalance, 227 million to the sell side.
So as we see these buyers move up, right? Did we have much buyer absorption in this area previously? No. We had these guys, right? These sellers on the limits. Interesting that when we trade back up into their price, maybe, just maybe, these homies right here are like, ah, shit. I should probably get out at break even, right? They're like, we don't got the juice here. They're trying. They're trying. Right? So what do you think that they're going to do? Do you see how this interaction can take place here? Where in this area at the beginning, we're absorbing. That's not how you spell absorb at all. Aborb. We have some aborbing. And then when we come back to that, now buyers are getting aggressive because we know that there's sellers here. Right? So let's just watch what happens. We're pushing up. No more sellers there. Buyers trying. Look at that. 40, 100. Okay, next tick, 100. Now we want to hold this level. Aborb. So do we understand what's happening with the auction here? Do you see these market orders executing across? And there's no willing sellers here. And now all these sellers are like, oh shit. Now some sellers step in. But notice what's also happening here. Sellers are getting aggressive and pushing into the bid, right? But buyers are there and bringing their bids up to try to hold this, right? Now there's a seller here. See how price is unable to move, but buyers are also stepping up. So now we're going to decide who wins the fight. And it's looking like buyers want to win, right? They're willing to buy higher. This is no bueno though. Now, the problem with trading off of a time frame like this on a chart like this is we can see just watching this how noisy this is, right? Just alone, where it's like, oh, well, 60 people executed market orders into the ask. No one followed through. Is this exhaustion? We don't know yet, right? We need more information, especially on like a 3-minute chart. But what we can utilize it for a lot is, let's do this. Let's go to a 30-minute chart. Now let's find like our oops. So like these lows. Let's look at the lows. Right. Once we start to understand an area like this, and we can look left and see this happening in this same area, right? Jesus. Do it like this. Right? Wow, that got big. Epic Pen sometimes just does weird stuff. Okay. Right? Like this, that's big. The 668, okay, we're interested. We're interested in the participants in this area from 24 half to up to 30. Why? Well, there's size, right? We can see there's decent size in this whole area, and it's aggressive size. How do we know it's aggressive? Well, we can see both sides participating and fighting here, right? In this whole zone. So how can we use this information to our benefit? Well, then we look in the future for the retest, right? And we can do the same thing. Like, let's go look at our intraday highs. Like here, right? Jeez, why does it do that? Why is this area important? Other than it being the highs. Why is it the highs? Yeah, until once we get over, but we can see this occurring, right? And then this lack of trading above until all of a sudden we get above. And here, God, this is annoying. We get our news candle. Look at all these market orders that are executing on both sides. What kind of orders are market orders? Or what? Let's see if we can get to what I'm trying to get with that broken ass statement. Yeah, but all these stops, right? Let's go back and watch this squeeze. Let's get off to 30. Let's go back to a 5. Is this confusing people more or making people, is it making more sense of what's occurring in a candle? Because this is literally your candle, right? This is literally everything that's in the candle is the volume, right? And what is all volume? Market, verse, limit, right? It's a battleground. And this guy's got his little sword. He's fighting this dude. He's got his shield.
Early market on close
You like
imbalance
that?
227 million to the sell side.
The sword attacking is your market. The shield defending is your limit. Pew pew. Like this. This is a good high. This is great, Chrome. That is fantastic. Do you see this battle happening now with size too? Yes, and so like here, I'll draw this out to make it easier. Right? So let's say we have this. 5, 4, 3, 10, 2, 1. Whatever. Right? So this is your bid. And this is your ask. Right? If I'm executing a limit, I am either resting on the bid or ask, right? If I'm executing a market, I'm jumping to the bid or ask. Right? So for these 4 orders to be executed, there needs to be 4 people who are willing to purchase the bid with a resting, and a seller needs to come meet them by jumping. Right? So this is why I always keep stressing you need to understand the interaction between limits and markets and the bid and the ask. Right? I'm a professional gamer, CJ. That's what I do. And then we see these areas like this where there's a big battleground, right? And we talk about this as well, where size needs size to transact. So if this seller here who's willing and it's not one person, we'll call it one person to just for ease of understanding, right? Has 1500 that they're willing to execute, and someone has a buy order to execute 1500, when they see this liquidity show up on the books, they're going to use that opportunity to execute, right? Because what happens even in, I don't know, like this area, it's going to be hard to see. But like if whoever here who wants these 1600 orders filled, if he just market orders 1600 orders, what is this? 21, 200, right? So 220, then we're at like 460, 1000, right? He's going to move price a full over a point in some of these low liquidity environments, right? And that's what a sweeper is, right? The sweeper is executing the size, but there's not enough resting. So
Early
then you
market
get
on
the
close
nasty
imbalance, still sitting at
candles.
227 million to the sell side.
Like, I don't know, we'll find one. Like this, like these thin areas, right? Because when you market order, you're going to get filled at the best possible price. So that's where there's someone willing to sell. Right? So like this whole thing could be one order in theory. Yes. So how can this be helpful? This can be helpful by putting weight on areas like this. Right? Where we see aggressive sellers, right? They're willing to absorb and then push. Absorb and push. Absorb and push. And notice how the limits keep moving down of size. Right? Now there's a buyer here who's willing to participate. So now we wait to see if there's going to be an imbalance in the order book. Right? Which is why we need other tools. Like just using this alone to make like an intraday scalp is very challenging. Because this is just a lot of noise. Right? It's called a footprint chart. It just shows you the orders being transacted inside of the can. Like, see how this buyer, he's trying. Once again, I am not an expert on this stuff. I can teach you and tell you what's going on in terms of like setups and stuff. The best resource you can do is go through the Axia courses. Each side can be interpreted as a buy or a sell. Well, every order has a buyer and a seller around. Every order is a buy and a sell. Right? But what type of buy and what type of sell? one type moves price, one type doesn't. Correct. See how important that is? Yeah, exactly, Jason. Exactly. Right? And if someone wants to buy 100, right? And there's only 50 sitting, 25 sitting, 15 sitting, and this is a market order, this book will be swept and price will move, right? What is the I word that we would call this situation? What just occurred? An imbalance. Why? Why is it an imbalance? Larger buy side. Perfect, right? And if there's someone who wants to fill 1500 on the limit below this 100 market, what is going to happen? Price is going to retrace the imbalance until it finds the liquidity, right? And then there's either going to be enough aggressive sellers to fill this full limit, right? Or homie's going to be like, I'm sick of this and start executing markets. And now we just have an FVG play, right? This is our FVG play. Because
Market on
fair
closing balance
value for
currently sitting at
buyers is still down here,
996 million to
but
the
this
sell side. We'll
dude
just
wanted
wait for the
to
final
rip.
orders to come through before we call it.
And then the rest of the buyers were like, nah, I'm going to wait.
Market on closing balance 938 million to the sell side. So market on closing balance for today's session 938
Does that
million
make
to the sell
sense?
side.
Here's a good example. Yeah, maybe it's not the... Right. This was our FVG earlier from 62. Right, this was some of our top initial targets for the day. What was it?
So 10 minutes away now.
58 to
So we're expecting
62
to hear
maybe?
comments from Fed's Waller.
Is that that?
So Fed's Waller gives a speech on the economic outlook during a virtual event hosted by the Mid-Sized Bank Coalition of America. Text is expected, as well as a Q&A from the moderator.
Right, so see how thin it is? Aggressive, right? This created our FVG. So any sellers who were selling up here, which we can see they were, there was absorption taking place, and still wanted to sell, didn't get filled, right? Look what occurs once we trade back into it. Granted, there was some liquidity crisis going on here, a very small term, right, with the news. It is what it is. But do we see the aggressiveness in this area still? The absorption, right? Buyers pushing in, but there's limit cells sitting here that still want to get filled. Push above, look to the bottom. Do buyers want to hold this? Yes. Bottom of FVG, rock and roll. Do you see how this interaction makes sense for our setups? Here now, being back on the 15, you can see there's aggressive selling here. Interesting, this is where our candle topped into these sellers, right, who were absorbing and then pushed down. Right, if we traded through, it's 90, where would we probably go? 82. Right? Where do we know there are buyers? It's whatever. My day was fine. Hopefully, like, this is making things make more sense. I cannot stress enough. View everything as this interaction between market and limit buys and sells. Because that is what it is. That's it. And if you can understand that, everything else will make sense.
So 5 minutes away now to expect to see comments from Fed's Waller, who discusses the economic outlook.
And it's the same way in any auction ever,
By the
right?
mid-sized bank coalition of America. Text is expected, as well as the Q&A from the moderator.
Like, think about like a car auction, right? Like, there's a reserve price that people want to get for something, and then people bid. And if there's a lot of interest, the bids will move up quickly.
He's on the Zoom chat. As soon as it's all sorted out, we'll get it out to you guys.
There's not a lot of interest, bids will move slowly. The problem with those type of auction analogies, CJ, is it's one-sided. Right? There's not a supply constraint, it's a demand thing. But visualizing it in that analogy can help you understand what's occurring, right? And there's still this like kind of idea of like a reserve price and like, but it's the same, like, yeah. But even just like, you get the super rare Corvette, that the bids are going to move quickly. They're going to move quickly. There's going to be a large imbalance, right? It's the same way. Same thing's occurring here. Yeah, runs great. Slight flood damage. Minimal wear. We're just looking at a 15 again here, Zach. It's fine. We can go. Let's go down to like a really small time frame for the close. It's on YouTube one. You can go look at it. Once again, this stuff is in the category of not required, but it may or may not help you understand things clear. The key though is understanding like what's happening on the wicks, right? Because this is all this information is the candle.
So 1 minute remaining before we get the text release for Fed's Waller.
What is happening here? Buyer is willing to participate. Now sellers pushing back. Do we see that interaction?
Fed's Waller says that goes for both overall and core inflation. So it says recent data underscores that the view that the fight to bring inflation down to target will be slower and longer than many had expected just a month or two ago. As it may be the last month's data release, where a blip and coming data will show activity, inflation resume their decline. Godswaller says some reasons for optimism and such as a sharp deceleration in rent increases, and says recent data indicates we have not made as much progress on inflation as thought. Godswaller says wages are growing faster than they have in a decade, which may contribute to keeping inflation elevated. Fedzwala says data has shown that instead of loosening, the labour market is tightening, and data last month challenged my view in January that the FOMC was making significant progress in moderating activity and reducing inflation, and my view will depend on what the data will say. Fedzwala says the Fed may need to raise rates beyond December's central tendency view of 5.1 to 5.4% if incoming job and inflation data does not pull back from the strong readings for January. Fedzwala says there may be some bumps on that path, but I assure you the FOMC's dual mandate objectives will be achieved, and the FOMC will do what is needed to reduce inflation to the 2% target. It says retail sales and spending data suggest progress on reducing demand may have stalled, and says excessively tight labour market complicates the path towards price stability, and any fear that we may face two-sided risks in achieving a dual mandate was blown away by the January jobs numbers.
Okay. Do we learn something? Should we do a macro review of the day really quick? Not going to go super in depth because I don't think we need to. Keys here. Really want to focus on pushing composite chart. How do we find zones? How do we find levels? Did people notice today how I would say something and Sig would post something and we weren't in discussion with each other at all and he wasn't on voice, but we came to the same levels? How? All previous volume profile levels. Let's go over our main targets for today, right? Main pivot, 55. Huge. Big, right? What next? 62, right? What about after that? 74, 84, 89, right? That was all thought about, and you could know that far before the day, right? Major things on the day. Globex session. Trading down into our lower balance area, right? What are our important levels? Edges of our nodes, right? Simple. I get on voice like here. First thing I posted in T2G.
So the Fed says that the Fed's
Let 'em talk.
Waller's virtual event has been cancelled due to technical difficulties.
That's hilarious. First thing I posted. Very important to hold into our upper balance area to see any upside movement. Why? Rejection here means all these buyers on the way down. SOL. And where would we then trade? Back down into our lower balance. Simple, right? Reclaim. Why was 55 so important? Well, see, it's hard to see with this profile. We'll draw it like this, and we'll just pull from 55, right? See how every time we traded down into the zone, and I'll mark it like this, 55, right? We needed to reclaim this edge. This is the 55 to 56. Yeah, right? Because every time we traded in here, we got aggressive buys, retest, aggressive buys, come down, a retest, aggressive buys, trade down into it, aggressive buys, right? And then when we lose this, that's a big deal, a very big deal, right? We need to trade back up into our upper balance where we see this taper down under 48, 47, right? We need to reclaim back into this area and get back over this. And then all of these sellers need to be punished. If these sellers are not punished, we would have probably saw something like this. Okay. Following so far. Now, once again, next, primary targets. 62. Why is 62 important? Well, we had an FVG here that was fresh, right, from Monday. Okay, if we look at our profile here, it's an edge into where our primary volume was. We needed to reclaim this edge, right? Very easy to put these targets, right? 64. Why was 64 important? Once again, primary volume, right? We'll put it exactly on 64. 64, 65, right? Primary volume, previous highs. We need to get back over these levels. We need to punish all of these sellers to push. And then it's just, it's literally just looking at nodes and pushing nodes, right? Get back into 64, into this primary node. We should oscillate the node. That's how we got 70, right? Then we have this taper. Okay, so this should see acceleration through because now these sellers punished. These sellers punished. Now we need to clear through this, right? This on the left, it's just the fixed range. I just like drew an arbitrary one to show some shape. The date where it started is very arbitrary in this. The importance is understanding like where this conjunction of volume is, right, and how it looks compared to our 2 month. We can actually probably take it off from here and just focus on this. It's just a little bit more granular than this, right? But once again, we push through the node. Okay, now we're in the next one, right? We look for node oscillation. We're one time framing up. What do we have here? Hourly. FVG. We look for that fill, right? We were looking for 84 next. Why? Same idea. Pushing into the top of the FVG. Primary node. Okay, just like as we traded through this node, now we're into this node. So what do we look for? Well, the edge, the middle, and the top. Right? We cannot know that at this point in the day that we're going to do a full goddamn retrace like this, right? But we can know, okay, we have this, and we have this, right? And if we can trade above this, buyer fair value moves up. Where does it move up to? Here, right? If we reject here, then what is true? Well, we break our node in half. We know this is seller fair value still. If this is respected, we look for the bottom, right? Then what do? Retest, down, up, down. Any questions? And people struggled with today. Do people now understand how those targets were found? What we were looking for? Right? The 74 zone we were talking about. Why? Weekly anchored VWAP. Monday highs. Right? We showed that on the hourly. Where's Monday? Monday opens in here, right? The more time you can understand where these fair value gaps as well as nodes are and understand, okay, so this is the area I'm looking to execute because of previous action. And then we wait and see what happens, right? And then we wait and watch for our volume, for our aggression. Are there any trades that happened today that people want to walk through? Or questions people have specifically? Bueller. I accidentally just did something with Epic Pen. I don't know what I did. That's good, Jared. So, main takeaways from today's action as well as like the last half hour of the day, kind of like class session, right? Break everything down to this understanding of markets and limits and how they interact. And then we look for areas where those interactions happened in the past, which are our high volume nodes. We use those stores of value to create targets, to create executional areas, right? We don't need to execute unless we know that there's size executing with us. All right, friends. If there's nothing else, I will see you tomorrow. Please, like I said, I am not an expert in like footprint trading setups. I can give you the basics like I did today. I can show you areas where we're observing these market things going on in terms of absorption, imbalances, yada yada yada. If you're like, oh wow, this really clicks with me, I'm super interested in it, go explore the Axia Futures videos. There's a lot of really successful traders who trade off a footprint chart, right? Um, like go explore it. I cannot once again push you guys hard enough to find what works for you. Just because something works for me, just because something works for Sig, does not mean it is the only way to do things and the only way to view things. Right? As long as you're operating within this framework of understanding value and how an auction works, the tools used to find your value like can be far and wide, right? Market profile, TPO, volume profile, footprint chart, VWAP, does not matter, but you need to have a way to find what is a mean and are we reverting from the mean or are we trading to a previous mean, right? And how are the orders executing for that to be true? It all has to stem from order execution. It all has to stem from an imbalance between market buyers and sellers, an imbalance between limit buyers and sellers. And as long as you're on that path, you will be okay. All right. I'm going to go make another pot of coffee. Goodbye.
So, taking a look at the market wrap for today's session, so US stocks snapped 2 days of losses after Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta's President Bostic. The central bank could be in a position to pause rate hikes sometime this summer, and Treasury yields stayed elevated. Traders ditched their low conviction moves towards the middle of the trading day, pushing the S&P 500 higher. The Nasdaq 100